Hello again, YouTube, for Hot Targaryen here, back again with another review. This time, it's going to be another review of the Marvel Cinematic Universe series. We did WandaVision before. Today, we're going to be doing the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and just like last time, we have a special guest, Podrew. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you, Lord Targaryen? Are you a Lord of the Targaryens, or I guess you probably aren't, right? You're just an offshoot
Yeah, I
from them.
am. I'm a long lost son of the Targaryen lineage, basically.
Well,
Um,
when it talks about Targaryens, lust might be the right word too, with your
that
siblings or whatever.
slip of the tongue, but it technically fits, unfortunately for me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Is it the MCU? Or is there a name for what this new Marvel Cinematic TV offshoot is, or like it's just like still
I
have
don't
people been
know.
calling it anything?
I don't know if they're calling it anything specifically. These are just new chapters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There have
Right.
been previous Netflix TV shows that take place in the same franchise, but they weren't really acknowledged. And we've talked about some of
Mm.
them way in the past, like Daredevil, Luke Cage,
Yeah. Right.
Jessica
Right.
Jones. Those were technically supposed to be in the same continuity, but because they were under Netflix and not under the umbrella of Marvel Studios, they weren't acknowledged by the
Mm.
movies. The movies of the MCU will definitely acknowledge the events that took place in WandaVision and in this show,
Right.
Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and the upcoming Loki, of course, which I think is the one that you were looking forward to the most, right? So,
Probably. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but yeah, watched the trailer as many people did, I'm sure, and it looked pretty good to me. Like you pointed out in the past, I'm more of a comedy guy. Yeah, I like the comedy, so that's a good character for that, obviously. Um, and who knows, it might lead into some of my thoughts from this series, but we'll see.
yeah. So I do intend to ask you a little bit more about like Loki and the future toward the end of this recording, but getting into Falcon and the Winter Soldier now. So the of this show like broke the records of popularity on Disney Plus. Period. I think like off the record when I was just texting you about it as every episode was coming out, I mentioned to you
Mm.
passingly that this show was so popular that it broke the records of the previous most popular show on Disney Plus, which I think was The Mandalorian, the Star
Right.
Wars spinoff, right?
Yeah.
So, needless to say, a lot of people watch this show. A lot of people probably really like this show. I can't say too much of that for me personally. This is what I will say. Is the show worth watching? Yes. Is the show good? Yes. Is the show mind-blowingly a masterpiece? No. I would say that this show, because I'm kind of critical of this stuff, I found a lot of it to be disappointing, and I would say overall the show is okay, but I still enjoyed it. I still definitely say it's worth watching, especially if you're a die-hard,
Right.
hardcore MCU fan. Then yeah, you definitely can't miss out on any of this content. That's my opinion. Okay. Now,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure no diehard Marvel fan is gonna, yeah, like they're obviously watching it, right?
yeah,
But I don't know because like we had talked about, I think we texted, but between maybe like episode 4 and 5, something like that, and you were saying like we didn't get into it, but I think you were saying you weren't loving what was going on. But I don't have your thoughts, how you felt overall until now, what you just said, I guess. But so yeah, I'm interested to hear still what your criticisms were, I guess, but or if those were taken care of by the through the finale or whatnot.
no, no,
No, okay,
no.
yeah.
Well, there were parts about the show that I really liked, but there were more things about it that disappointed me. So like we haven't talked about any of the content yet, but basically I feel like this show as a storytelling and as a narrative, it aims really high, but it doesn't reach what it tries to achieve. That's the
Mm-hmm.
best way I can describe it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I felt, I mean, we could get into this more in a little bit later, probably, but I do feel like maybe they were trying to do a little too much with one 6 episode,
Yeah, and
season.
yeah.
But to catch people up too, if they didn't, they should go back and listen to our WandaVision talk, but they didn't, just for like where we're coming from. You're the big MCU fan, right? And I'm more casual. And actually, getting kind of burned out on MCU by Infinity War, or rather Endgame. And then actually WandaVision was intriguing to me. I did enjoy it a lot. And at that point I wasn't even necessarily going to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. I wasn't really that interested, but watching WandaVision it got me a little bit back into MCU. So then I obviously did. So yeah, that's just the background, right?
Yeah, okay, that's very good to hear. And yeah, this is obviously a very different show than WandaVision.
Yeah.
I would say WandaVision is something very different than what you usually see from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This show is a great follow-up, I mean, tone-wise and basically presentation-wise, to the Captain America film series, the First Avenger, the Winter Soldier especially, and then Civil War. I'd say this show is a good follow up to that series within the meta series, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right. And I think Winter Soldier probably was my favorite of those three films. However, my memory of all of them and a lot of the Marvel movies in general, I'll need your help and whatever, is like I just don't. There's just so much there, and then since I'm not so into it, I don't. There's definitely, I'm sure there's tons of references and things that were in this that I just didn't remember or didn't pick up on. But anyway,
I agree with you about the Winter Soldier. I would say it's definitely one of my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe films. It's one of the best in my opinion. That might be why it's actually one of my favorites. Yeah. And I really didn't like Captain America Civil War. I don't know if I ever talked to you about that film, but I have some pretty big problems with that. And
yeah. It's just more of I felt like that one was really just more of a straight up Avengers movie, kind of, wasn't it?
Exactly. That was part of the problem that I had with it, but it's under the moniker Captain America, like it matters.
I think I did like it better than Age of Ultron, if I remember. But yeah.
Yeah. Age of Ultron might be a little bit worse than that one, actually. But yeah. So yeah, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, one last thing about WandaVision, despite how different it is from that, there is a little bit of it that you can compare it to. And toward the end of this recording, I do want to ask you, just to compare it to that. But getting into this show in particular, the first episode opens up with a very heavy action sequence, and right off the bat, once they started it off this way, I already felt like I might not like the show that much. This is how the whole show is going to be. I don't know if you remember, but the first major part of the first episode of this show was it took place in a desert scenario, out in the desert, with Sam trying to apprehend that truck. I don't know if I'm saying that character's name right, but he was after him. And it was a really heavy action set piece. It was probably the most expensive part of the episode, but I'm thinking okay, they're opening up with something very, very typical of this franchise, and it's not that the show overall. There are some pretty great action sequences later on, but opening up with this one, despite how good or bad it might be, kind of bored me. As to put it simply,
I have to agree. Yeah. I have to agree with that. I found that fairly boring myself. I would say that opening action sequence with the flying, where they're trying to stop it before it gets to the border of another country or something. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Falcon by himself is not so exciting to me. I gotta say, when they're fighting all together and stuff. And obviously we'll get with the finale when he's in Captain America now, and then they're cutting all to different places with fights. I like that more, but yeah, just the one him by himself with the guy in his ear talk. Yeah, it didn't do much for me. I agree.
So I was watching Chris Stuckman's review of Falcon a couple of days ago. I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Stuckman. He's one of my favorite critics on YouTube.
Yeah, you had me for WandaVision. We talked about his review a little bit, right? Or I remember I watched it because he told me to. Yeah, but I was already fairly familiar with him. I'd watched some of his other stuff, but I didn't watch this particular review.
Right. So, he mentioned a few things there that one thing that's relevant that I'll talk about later on. But he mentioned something else that I thought was pretty interesting regarding this show, which was, you saw Avengers Endgame. A lot of people saw Avengers Endgame. It's literally the second highest grossing film, and it was the highest grossing film for a long time. That movie ended with Sam's character arc him picking up the mantle. He even says it feels like it belongs to someone else, and Steve says to him it isn't. And I thought after that moment that he is accepting the mantle of Captain America, the new Captain America. Then, some time goes by and Disney announces a bunch of new MCU TV shows exclusive to Disney Plus, one of them being called Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And when they had announced it, I was thinking, okay, so this is going to be the first part of Sam's journey as the new Captain America. That's what I thought the show was going to be. And I was thinking, all right, if he's going to be the new Captain America, maybe he's also going to get the super soldier serum so that he could be at least as strong as Steve was when he was Captain America. But lo and behold, once the show premieres, pretty much the whole show is about the super soldier serum. I didn't think or know that that's what the show was going to be all about, essentially. And they make it a point to say that Sam will not take that serum. And going along with the ending of Avengers Endgame, we see that he's conflicted about having received the shield and decides at first not to take up the mantle of Captain America, which puts him at odds with Bucky for the first half of the show, I would say, right? They already seem to not like each other, but him turning in the shield really pissed Bucky off.
Yeah. Did they not like each other, or was that the reason why Bucky was mad primarily at him?
They kind of bumped heads a few times during the Captain America trilogy, I think.
Well, because obviously Bucky was a Winter Soldier. He was a villain, right? So he was brainwashed or whatever, right? So
yeah, I'm sorry, not during the trilogy, but during Captain America Civil War, once they bring Bucky on board and get him out of the whole brainwash situation, when they were trying to work together, they were fighting Spider-Man at some point during that, and Bucky says to Sam, couldn't you have done that earlier? When he finally defeats Spider-Man, and he goes, I hate you. So that was supposed to be funny. I didn't think that was that funny. There was another scene where they were both in a car and they're watching Sam make out with Sharon Carter, who's also an important character in this show, which we'll get into, by the way. And
he makes out with her. I don't remember that at all. Okay.
Yeah, and it was another kind of like a romantic but also funny scene because Bucky says to Sam, can you move your seat up? And Sam was like, no. And there's actually a nod to, you were talking about like, nods and references. There's actually a nod to that in this show, which we might go over.
I see.
And then once they're done making out, Steve looks at them and they're both like smiling like, hey, yeah. So, yeah.
You might as well just give it to me now. What was the nod in this show? What was it?
So the Madripoor scene, I think this is in episode 3. This might be in episode 3, the Madripoor scene, right after Zemo kills the mad scientist who developed Dr. Nagel, I think his name was. After Zemo kills him, and the fight ensues with the people who are like mercenaries looking for that bounty. Zemo apprehends them all or kills them all, and he gets a getaway car. Bucky gets into the front seat. Sam gets into the back, and Sam is like, you're not going to move your seat up, are you? And
oh, right, yeah.
I don't know if you remember.
Okay. So that was a good reference then, if I would have remembered it from the movie.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we're going a little bit all over the place, but since we're kind of there now with the Sharon character, so at the end, like the end reveal of like the last episode is like she's actually a villain, I guess, or she's going to be against the U.S. government, it seems like. So, well, we could talk about that, but the point being, in that, so we learn later that she's a power broker. Yeah. Not in the episode you're talking about, but in a later episode, I guess in the finale also. So in that part we're talking about where they killed the scientists and all that, is she killing her own people that she is after that are, because like she is the power broker. They're like, the bounty is supposed to be from the power broker, right? Yeah. But she's there just mowing down everyone's coming in, right?
That scene, I was really confused about that, honestly. Like, I didn't know who the bounty was on. Was it on Dr. Nagel or was it on Sam and Bucky because of what they had just done? Like the night right before they were meeting.
I guess it must have been on Sam and Bucky now I think about it, right? Because like, why would it be on? Yeah, it's a good point. But either way, it does seem like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't totally confused about that, but yeah. I do, yeah. We're definitely going to go into more of like the Madripoor scenes, the whole episode that took place there, and the power book and all that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about like how the show started off with Sam, because in my
Right.
opinion, one of the parts of the show that really shines is when it deals with more like personal level things, like not to do with superhero life, but regular hero life, I guess. Because Sam was part of the snap, the Thanos snap. He was gone for a whole 5 years, and then he comes back. He even mentions how his nephews are like young men now, but they're still kids, right? Um,
Mhm.
he and his sister Sarah try to apply for a loan, and they are rejected. And this kind of shows the hardships of what life is like for a black family living in the South, right? And I don't know if the show mentions this. If it doesn't, then I think it is important to mention, why didn't some of the richer heroes of the MCU help out the less fortunate? Like Tony Stark, when he was still alive, could have helped out his Avengers team. I mean, he wasn't best friends with Sam the way Steve was, but he could have,
They're against each other in the Civil War, right? Because
they were.
it was Tony versus Captain America, right? I think that yeah, it's interesting. And like, how much did the Avengers actually get paid in the first place, or what? Yeah, like, what is he getting is Falcon getting a salary from like? Yeah, how does it work? I don't know, but I do think that part of the character of Sam though was that he wouldn't want, like, he doesn't want Tony Stark to just give him a bunch of money to help him out, right? I don't think, right, that doesn't really make sense for his character. You know, he wants to and I don't think his sister wants that either, you know what I mean? Like cuz do you get what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to just take like charity or something, right, from the
Well, I don't know. In fact, like I'm trying to remember if they actually bring it up in the show. I think the lender actually says, "Hey, you worked with the Avengers. Didn't Stark ever give you a stipend or something?" I don't know.
right. So I guess he didn't. Yeah, it's interesting. But I do think part of the this is obviously the sort of thing they wouldn't get into in a movie, in a Marvel movie too much probably. And like, when you have a show, then you can get into it more. I definitely think they obviously wanted to get into like some social issues with the show. Um,
Yes.
so I, and that may be part of the reason why they were maybe trying to do too much. I'm not saying they shouldn't have done that. It does make sense to a degree, but yeah, there is a lot, because it did, like, the storyline with him and his sister and their family. It's introduced in the first episode or two, then it kind of gets forgotten a little bit in the middle of the show, and then it's back hard at the end, right?
Yeah. It is.
So yeah,
And
uh, and I don't know if it is. Um, yeah, I don't know, but I guess also because of the like the whole thing about that he's calling in the favors, right, from the people around town that
toward
his
the
family
end,
helped out in the
yeah,
past. Yeah,
yeah.
but that's like sort of the thing. I think like initially they hadn't even called in those favors or whatever. So there's part of them, I think, that, and maybe especially from the sister, that didn't want like help, this outside help or whatever. It's like, or I guess she was trying to sell their boat, right? He wanted it to stay in the family. That was the initial conflict
Yes.
between them, right? So
Yes. Yes.
so maybe more from him actually, yeah, not wanting that.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting how they have different viewpoints, though they were like their brother and sister. And I think you do have a point in that, like maybe Sam wouldn't have just wanted to get like a huge donation from like a billionaire like Tony or anything like that. I really don't. I think it makes sense that he wouldn't just want help like that. But would Tony offer to do something like that? That's the more important question. But we'll never know. It's not really relevant to by the end of this show, because they prevail in what they set out to do, which is good for them. Like I said, when this show deals more in like the
Yeah,
relatable parts of the characters, those are the parts of the show that I actually enjoyed a lot. um
yeah. They just needed Bucky to come in there on the boat with his arm and do the work there, and then they're all
oh man,
good.
good. I'm glad that you brought up Bucky. That's who I was just about to bring up. Speaking of him, like yeah,
uh,
he and Sam weren't really friendly with each other in the beginning. Toward the end, yeah, they are, and he helps out a lot with the boat and everything. But
that
he's
was a good sequence. I liked it
yeah,
as well.
I,
Yeah.
I liked it a lot too. So He's the other main character. I think there's a term for like protagonist and a second protagonist. I think it's deuteragonist or something. I don't know if I'm saying that word right, but
Maybe, yeah. I would say they're the other. Yeah, I don't know how to say it either, but like they're but the titular characters are the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So
right, yeah, the Falcon and the Sam and Bucky exactly. So we see glimpses of what his life is like. He's still dealing with the trauma of his past. He's having nightmares of the people that he's killed. He's in mandatory therapy, administered by the government. I think his therapist is someone who was like a war hero in the past, and because of that, they
I think
chose
they said that. Yeah.
to be his therapist. We see him hanging out with an elderly gentleman, and we don't get why he's so friendly with this person in the beginning. Later on, we see from a nightmare that he has that he murdered this gentleman's son, and that's why he feels guilty and is just accompanying him, right? And it's something that Bucky's really he has like a list of things that he's crossing out on his book. This is one thing that he's really stuck on. I don't know if there are other people that he killed that he hasn't been able to be at peace with. I remember in Captain America Civil War when Tony's kind of choking him out and he asks Bucky, do you even remember them? And he says, I remember all of them. So
Right.
Is it that they're all dead and there are no family members left except for this elderly gentleman? I don't know, but how they handled that, like the ending of that, is something I really didn't like in the finale, and we'll get into that later on as well. But,
yeah, I think probably just from a show story writing standpoint, you just pick the one to this one character to show that whole thing. So there probably is other people, but also at the beginning he's like not doing the steps right, technically, right?
He's not. He's lying to his therapist, and that also kind of annoys me about like how he thinks he can outsmart her. Clearly, she knows what she's doing, and you can't just lie or bullshit your way out of a therapy session with her. So it's not like there's much she can do anyway besides counsel him, but still. So like he would have been.
Well, he gets arrested at one point, right? Because he doesn't show up for the session.
And that's a scene I also want to talk to you about, because that's right after the meeting of Isaiah Bradley. So that scene was actually more important to me than you might think. So we'll get into that as well. But the major thing at the stinger, I guess, of this episode, the way it ended was Bucky was watching TV in his home, Sam and Sarah were watching TV in their home, and the whole world is watching as a new Captain America is being revealed, right?
Yes.
This
Kurt Russell's son.
Yes, Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's son.
Wyatt Russell, yeah. So this is off the heels of a very important event of that episode where Sam is giving kind of like is it a eulogy for Steve Rogers? I'm guessing he. I
don't think it would be technically a eulogy because it's not a funeral. It's like some type of dedication speech or something.
I think so, yeah. But I'm guessing he passed away at this point. Steve Rogers of old age has just passed away, I think. I'm not sure, but I thought that was the case with why they're having that scene of.
Well, wasn't he applied to have been dead by the end of? Okay, I thought he was already basically dead at the end of Endgame. Like he turned into the old man again, and then kind of. I guess he didn't technically die, right? But
yeah, we didn't see.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we didn't see him pass away. We just see him as an old man giving the shield to Sam. That's the last time we ever see him. Well, no, the last time we see him is a scene where he goes back into the past and is dancing with Peggy, right?
Oh yeah, so did he actually physically go back into the Yeah, that's another confusing thing.
To return the Infinity Stones. Yeah, that was
okay. So he's not. So he is not there at all.
I think that he passed away from old age in the current timeline of 2023 or 2024, whenever exactly this show takes place. Sam does say to Torres that, this is taking place, him looking after the Flag Smashers. When they talk about the Flag Smashers for the first time, he says, the snap, the blip, that all happened 6 months ago. So they're saying that this takes place 6 months after the end of Endgame, right?
Is it concurrent with WandaVision too then? Because it had happened recently in that too, right? Because she wakes up. We see her wake up. The character from Monica wake up in WandaVision.
Yeah.
And then it's a couple months later too, right?
It's a couple of months. Yeah. Keyword being couple. I think WandaVision is much closer to the events of Endgame than this show is. Like, this show is half a year later, and WandaVision might be very soon after the battle with Thanos. I think it's not totally clear, but I think that's
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, and going back to the new Captain America, when we were watching the news and he starts running out into the podium and is about to wave around, I was thinking like, damn, they're really going to do that. They didn't waste any time passing the shield on to another white hero. Like, that's the thing. Like, we were supposed to be getting a new black Captain America, but instead of hanging up the shield, they take the shield and give it over to a new war hero who also just happens to be white and hated by the fans, which we'll also get into later. But what I'm trying to tell you is, I was wondering if we were going to see his face by the end of the show. And I'm like, all right, they're going to end the show without showing us who this person looks like. But they do. They do end the show like showing us this person's face. And
you mean the episode, right? Because we saw it. Like,
yes.
Are you talking about? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Not the show. Like.
Space. John Walker, yeah. And then the episode ends. Before we even get to know this person, everybody is hating the fact that there is a new Captain America taking Steve Rogers' place. I gotta tell you, man, I didn't really hate this guy the way everybody else did. The only thing I will say is that he didn't earn the shield. Like, yeah, he was a war hero and stuff. Like, he did fight for his country and everything, but he didn't fight the same type of fights that Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson did as superheroes. So he didn't earn the shield. I'd say Sam did, but he didn't. And that's
really... But he turned it down. Yeah. So... Are you saying when people hated it, you're talking about fans of the show hated it?
Yes. Well,
we talked about the fans a little bit with WandaVision too. I do feel like this is fans being kind of dumb, I guess, because that's the point, right? Like, you're not if you're like that's how you have conflict and drama in a show. Like, are fans mad because they're like, this guy doesn't deserve it? Like, so the show's bad? That doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean?
Not that, but like, you're not. Okay. You can hate the character, but you don't have to hate the character so much that you start sending the actor death threats. Which actually,
I didn't even know anything about this. Well,
that happened, and that's not the first time such a thing ever happened. You know, you remember, you're a huge fan of Game of Thrones, or you were, right? I'm pretty sure the actor for Joffrey also received death threats for playing his part so well, right? It's crazy. It's nonsense, really.
But people were doing that from the first episode he's introduced, because that doesn't make sense to me either. Like, I could see a couple episodes later.
People hated him from the moment they saw his face, but that sort of stuff didn't start happening, I think, until the end of episode 4, where he brutally murders one of the Flag Smashers. I think after that is when that sort of thing started happening. But
I think I have the opposite connotation, almost, because maybe I'm going too far the other direction and liking the character because who plays him. Because I'm a big Kurt Russell fan, and he basically literally looks like his parents. Like, a lot of times you don't look exactly like your parents, like 50-50, but he pretty much does. Like, he was like a blonde Kurt Russell. So, like, I've also seen him in a movie called Overlord, which I thought he was really good in. I don't know if you've seen that, but I would recommend that.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting. It's like a World War II movie, but with zombies, kind of, which sounds like it could be bad, but they do it pretty well, I think. So he's pretty good in it. So I like this guy. So I'm like already giving him the benefit of the doubt. The character, maybe because of the actor, but I don't know.
I have seen him in a few things before. I saw him in Jump Street 23. He was in that. And I think I saw maybe half an episode or two of some TV show called Lodge 41, 43, something along those lines. Only because I was watching Better Call Saul, and that episode of that show took place before or after that. I never watched the full thing, but I think he was a starring actor in that. But that's pretty much all I can remember him in. But yeah, ironically, his father in real life is also a major character, or was a major character in the MCU. Did you see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2?
Oh, right. He was the father of Chris Pratt, Star-Lord.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So
yeah, I didn't make that connection at all. I completely forgot about that,
yeah.
But so the character is meant to be, I guess it's meant to show that, like, kind of what you're saying, they gave it to the white guy or whoever, like the prototypical, they somewhat cast, when I say cast, not the show cast, but like the government cast him as like the new Captain America because of his look, partly, obviously his service and stuff too. But,
yes, precisely.
Yeah, so, and then obviously from a narrative standpoint, Bucky and Falcon are gonna have an issue with him.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, they had an issue with the government so quickly and easily deciding that they need to have a new symbol, Captain America, you know, which I agree with that. They're like, why did you feel like you needed a new Captain America just like that right away? You know, like that's one thing. But
it makes sense though. It makes sense to me why they would feel like that seems true to life to a fair degree. I think that they
I
would
guess.
do that.
Well, if I were them, I would the GRC, the Global I forget what it stands for, the GRC, which is like the major organization that deals with situations with the blip, who hired this new Captain America, or like, you know, presented him to the world. I guess if I were them, I would at least try to, you know, negotiate with Sam or convince Sam, like, hey, are you sure you want to hang up the mantle? Are you sure you don't want to be the new Captain America? Because Steve wanted you to be him, you know, take up his mantle. Are you sure? Instead of, like, you know, handing it off to someone else who has nothing to do with anything the Avengers had ever done, you know? That's just my thing. That's my opinion. But
yeah. So, like, from a show perspective, why do you think they did it? Because like we were kind of saying before, we thought he would just be Captain America now in the show, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, why? And now he actually is Captain America by the end of the show, right? And they even have the name Captain America and the Winter Soldier, right? So, like, why was it just to like get some drama, or just to what am I trying to say? Like, was it just to did they have this whole conflict just to like create this storylines? Because they could have just had him start from the beginning, and he could have still had found out about the Isaiah character and like had that conflict still. I don't know.
I mean, story-wise, I think I guess story-wise it does make sense in a few ways, because John Walker is a character from the comics, and he was another Captain America in the comics who eventually becomes U.S. agent, just like in this show. So they're definitely basing some of this off of the comics, of there being a new Captain America after Steve Rogers, you know. So
is U.S. Agent gonna, like, I don't, this would be a spoiler, I guess, from the comics or something. I don't know if you even know this, but it does seem like he's not, like, because it seemed to me like I thought he was going to be turning into a villain, right? Like a full villain. But then it seemed to go the opposite way then, where he's like, he helps at the end, obviously. And is this U.S. Agent superhero like a hero, or is it still going to be in conflict with Captain America and all this stuff?
The rumor that I have been hearing is that he's getting hired. You know, like that shady lady that kind of went over and talked to him after he was dishonored.
It's Julia Louis-Dreyfus, yeah, Elaine from Seinfeld,
yeah,
who I love seeing for sure.
So the rumor that I'm hearing is that he's going to be an anti-hero. He's not going to be a straight up villain. He's going to be an anti-hero, and he might be recruited for a team known as the Dark Avengers, which is interesting.
Okay, that could be interesting. And is the Julia Louis-Dreyfus character, I would assume that's from the comics too. Like, who, I couldn't exactly tell who she's supposed to be, but like, she's not, obviously not working for the government, right? She's like doing her own thing, or like,
she's doing her own thing. And from what I understand, I can't confirm this, but she's supposed to be like a dark version of Nick Fury, which Nick Fury was the person who was kind of the ringleader of the original Avengers, right? So that's who, like, she's supposed to be a dark version of him, which would make sense if she's recruiting the Dark Avengers. So I can't confirm that this is true.
Are they just setting up a different show here, you think? Like, just a completely different show? Or is this going to be like
a movie called Dark
true.
Avengers, or a movie that has that team play a vital role or something? I think.
Okay.
That's what I'm currently hearing. But more on the into the psyche of John Walker, I gotta say, man, I didn't hate him as much as everybody else did, because for a few reasons. Number one, I never liked Steve Rogers that much. I was annoyed by him throughout the narrative of the MCU, honestly. Like, I felt like for a lot of times he felt kind of overpowered. In the original comics, the super soldier serum wasn't supposed to give him superhuman strength. It was supposed to give him peak level human abilities, kind of like Batman, right? Batman isn't superhuman, but he's the peak of what a human being can be. And that's what the original comics was supposed to give Steve Rogers. But Steve Rogers in the MCU is based on the Ultimate Comics, where it does actually give him a certain level of superhuman strength. And seeing him do things throughout the MCU, like, honestly really annoyed me, and his actions really annoyed me as well, especially in his movie Captain America: Civil War. So when the mantle was passed to him, the only part of it that I didn't like, which I already mentioned to you, is the fact that he didn't earn the title of Captain America. But besides that, I didn't think he did anything that offensive. In fact, episode
Yeah.
2 opens up with a flashback of John Walker feeling the pressure of accepting the mantle of the new Captain America, right? We didn't like, how is
Right.
that supposed to paint him as a bad guy? We didn't see him as being all that arrogant. Like, I know there was a,
No,
yeah,
yeah. I think he was fair. To me, I thought he was a fairly sympathetic character.
yeah,
Obviously, went over the line in the one episode, regrettably, but like he isn't. Yeah, he was trying to take it seriously, and like he wasn't. I didn't think being arrogant either. Obviously, he was getting frustrated with Bucky and Sam not like wanting to go along with helping, essentially, but and that's when it started to go badly. But yeah, I didn't really I do think it is also supposed to show how, like, we're talking about the social issues, black people in America, poor people, etc. And then we haven't even talked about the whole flag smashers thing yet, but it's also showing with the Walker character how veterans are treated in this country, and in general, I guess, like, they're throwing him away as soon as something bad happens that they don't like.
which I don't think was
They're
totally fair. I mean, you said he crossed line.
no, it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah, and he was cut. Well, the line he crossed, so uh, wasn't even like doing the morally wrong thing of killing someone. It was doing it on camera where everyone could see. That's what the problem they had, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so that just further shows, yeah, like I think that's supposed to further point out how the hypocrisy of governments and all
Yeah,
this stuff,
the
military.
GRC in particular, which is the guy, they didn't even give that senator a name. He was literally just an old white man in power, right? I don't even think
Mhm.
that character had a name. He was just kind of a symbol of people in power in this country and what's wrong with how power in this country is handled, right? And he's the one who fires Walker as Captain America for what he did there. But before all that, and that is definitely one of the most important parts of this show, and I definitely want to get into that with you. But in the beginning, anyway, yeah, I didn't find Walker to be that offensive. I don't get why Sam and Bucky hated him so much from the get-go and were so apprehensive to working with him. Like, what did he do wrong? Like, yeah, he accepted the mantle of Captain America. He talked about Steve as if he knew him, even though he didn't. But besides that, what was he doing that was so bad? He wanted to work with you in order to have the same end goal. So why were you being such a jerk to him? I mean, he did mention that one thing about, like, oh, it would be great to have the wingman of the old Cap alongside him. I understand Sam getting annoyed by him saying that, but besides
Yeah.
that, I didn't really understand it.
I think it was. I don't think it was so personal from them even. Like I think it was just they didn't want anyone else to have the shield, or Bucky wanted Sam to have the shield, and Sam wanted no one to have it. So anyone who is I think they would have conflict with anyone who picked it up probably.
There were things Bucky did and said that really got on my nerves, which we will get into later on as well. But yeah, like that mini therapy session where Sam is trying to tell Bucky something along the lines of, "Can you please try to find it in your heart to understand that I gave in the shield because I thought it was the right thing to do," and Bucky wasn't even like trying to really understand it. Like that therapy session ended with the two of them saying, "We're going to work together on this, and then we'll never see each other again."
Yeah,
I mean,
I like that scene too. It was kind of funny too how they're getting close in each other, yeah, with on the chairs and everything.
the actors, I should say, have good chemistry, which is,
Yeah,
they've worked together for so long. Right, this is like the fourth or fifth time they're working together in this franchise, so that definitely plays for the show as well. Like the acting in the show, most of the acting anyway. Like some of the acting I think kind of falls flat, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that later. But um, you mentioned something else also that was a big revelation of the show, which was Isaiah Bradley, the black super soldier in the fictional history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He fought the Winter Soldier during the Korean War, and apparently, I don't know if I misheard or understood correctly, but um, Mr. Bradley is the reason why Bucky lost his arm and got that metal arm in the first place. It was because he fought Bucky and lost. Bucky lost, and and his arm was was gone after that.
I didn't pick up on that, but yeah, they might have said it.
They might have
I
said it, they
didn't
might
catch
not
it.
have said it, but I think the point of it all was that like they fought
Yeah.
and he lost. And the
Sorry to go off on a tangent right now, but
go ahead.
just for my clarification,
Yeah.
can you give me the backstory on the arm real quick? Because like, so, and some of this I probably should already know from watching the movies, but like, so Bucky was in Wakanda, right? And
Mhm.
then that whole plot line gets dragged into this too. They gave him that arm that he currently has now with like their super technology, right?
Yes, with the
And we saw the kid
vibranium.
take it away if they want.
Yes.
So he already didn't had a fake arm before getting that one though, or what was?
He did, but it got blown off. You remember the fight at the end of Captain America Civil War? It was Tony versus Steve and
Okay,
Bucky at the same time. So Tony uses some excessive force and blasts out of his chest toward Bucky, and that destroys his metal arm.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So
just didn't
that's
remember.
yeah.
All right.
After that is when Bucky goes to Wakanda and spends time there. And then in the post-credit scene of Black Panther is when we see Bucky actually has a cameo in there, and
It's the White Wolf, right? That's what they call him.
yes, yes, which is
Okay.
cool. You mentioned how the ending credit of this show renames the title Captain America and the Winter Soldier. That kind of annoyed me because
You think it should have been on the White Wolf or on
yes,
something else?
yes,
Yeah,
even though
because that is a negative connotation, right? The Winter
yeah,
Soldier's a bad guy, right? And a
unless
brainwashed guy.
unless Bucky was trying to redefine being the Winter Soldier throughout the show, but he doesn't. He tries to ditch being.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I
he has to
understand.
pretend to be him at the one point, right? But
Yes, exactly that as well. And I understand he doesn't really do White Wolf shit in this show, but he mentions the title in this at some point. So it would have been just it would nice to just have it there to tease what's coming for Bucky later on. You know.
yeah,
So
I agree. I
so
agree. Well, we're talking about Isaiah Bradley. That's his name, right?
So we were talking about you were talking about Bucky's arm and how he may or may not have destroyed
Yeah,
his human arm, which led to his
yeah.
first metal arm.
That was a tangent I was going on, but we want to talk about the Isaiah character, right? So he,
Yeah, yeah,
I think they also said he's the only one that survived from the super soldiers they had back then, right? And
yeah.
he's supposed to be dead, or
He was
he's like
experimented on, yeah. So after he
right.
fought in the Korean War, the government experimented on him constantly and also threw him into jail. So they really, really screwed him over. You know, he's really bitter about all that, and I can kind of understand why he is, and I can understand Sam getting angry about like how did they keep a black Captain America secret all of this time, right? Like imagine if he was present during like the civil rights movement, the amount of force he would have been able to put forth there. I guess for those reasons, the government decided to put him into like some special jail that he couldn't escape from, and then he we end up
That's what I was
seeing
saying. On the record, he's dead, right? But they
yes
actually did let
on
him. Someone let him out to
on
live in secrecy or whatever.
on the record, yes, on the record he is dead. He's let out, and I think that's his grandson. I don't know what the relationship is with the young man that he's living with, but
Right.
apparently there might be plans for that character as well for the Young Avengers series.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
there
That
might
character didn't really do anything for me, but okay. I
not
mean, I
not
get why it was the purpose of it, but I wasn't like, all right, now I need to see this guy in his own movie or something
yeah.
or show. But
All
anyway,
they, all they did was introduce him in this show. He didn't do much, but he might have a future and a bigger role in this show. But we also see in Mr. Bradley's anger that he still has the strength of a super soldier. Like he takes his toaster and jams it into the wall. So
oh, right,
despite him being old, he still has the
yeah,
strength of the super soldier serum in him, which makes me
good
think
point.
old man Rogers might have also had that strength too, like at the end of Endgame. It's just he was done fighting and he was accepting like his death, like the death of an old age.
Oh, yeah, interesting point. Yeah, that's probably true. Um, but I mean, we already talked about the social issues and whatever with this. So like, I did like all that stuff, especially toward the last episode. I think they tied it together pretty well. You know, the whole part of him saying like any self-respecting black man wouldn't pick up like that whole thing, and then he comes around a little bit, you know, and like gives Sam some credit at the end. So that was done well, I think, but this brings me to like it's kind of a tangent again, I guess, but like one of my criticisms or one of the things I don't like about Marvel in general like, are saying they're fighting during the Vietnam War or all this stuff. I kind of wish it didn't take place like in the real world. Like, for example, Zemo, he's like from a fake country, right? Wakanda's a fake country. I would rather them just have everything be a fake country and not, and like obviously it's still supposed to be the United States, but they could just call it something, whatever. Because it bumps me a lot when they kind of, because if you start thinking about it too much, you're like, oh, well, 9/11, did 9/11 happen? Well, why didn't the heroes stop it? And all this stuff like that. They even make a reference to El Chapo in one of the episodes, which I was like, I don't like that. Like that, it just doesn't work for me. I don't know. Maybe that's a controversial opinion, but I think it ruins some of the points they try to make sometimes, or some of the story. I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying, and I would say this is one of the biggest difference between Marvel and DC, because New York City is exactly. New York City is a huge setting all throughout the Marvel comics and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? So many important things happen in New York City, which is a real place. Whereas in DC, one of the most important cities is Gotham, which a lot of people will argue that Gotham is New York City, but it's
Metropolis is also it, kind of, or like whatever.
Yeah, it's Jersey City, I guess. That Gotham is New York City and Metropolis is Jersey City, I guess. I don't know, but I understand what you mean, and I can meet you halfway in that, like, the this franchise makes a lot of real life references and jokes, like Tony Stark calling Thor the Big Lebowski, like jokingly in Endgame. He does that all the time, right? But you would think in this universe with so many things happening, like aliens showing up, like if aliens showed up in real life, the world would never be the same. That happened in this fictional universe, but the references that these characters make are still to, like, real world movies and songs and TV shows. At this point in the MCU, I feel like because the fictional history has diverted so much that social, like, pop culture would be different as well.
Exactly. Like El Chapo probably would have got blipped, or even if he didn't, like, they're going to be referencing him escaping, like, and what is this supposed to be, 2023? And like, it just doesn't. It just rubs me the wrong way. But I guess it's it's a minor criticism when they kind of shoehorn things in like that, but more of a major criticism. Not even a criticism of Marvel, but just something I personally don't like as much, I guess. Yeah,
I can understand that is a fair criticism. I think they just do it to make it more relatable to, like, real life. I think that's why they do it, but I understand why you dislike it, because of how much it has diverted from our reality, right?
Yeah, I guess even probably because Marvel is such a rival of DC, which back in the day, right, DC was the big game in town, and Marvel was like Marvel was kind of an upstart. So maybe they even purposely made it in the real New York and all that to go against DC. I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say before the MCU was a juggernaut of a franchise, DC might have been the more popular series. Besides Spider-Man, I think Batman and Superman, the top three most well-known superheroes would be Spider-Man,
for sure,
Superman, right? There was the Dark Knight trilogy, the Dark Knight in particular, and I guess
Marvel was up, I believe. Yeah, I think Marvel was like up for sale in like the late 80s or early 90s or something like that. Like,
I don't know about
like
that.
it was like in a really bad spot then, and it was like going to get sold for like not even a huge amount of money, relatively, I believe.
I think they ended up getting bought by Disney for $4 billion, $2 to $4 billion, something along those lines, in 2009 or 10, I think. I'm not sure. But yeah,
I think Iron Man came out in 2008.
Yep, I was in high school when that happened. That was a good movie, by the way. That was a really, really good movie, the first Iron Man, in my opinion. But speaking of rubbing things the wrong way.
Where is this gonna go?
All right, so
we're not talking about you and your Targaryen siblings. Right?
Oh no! I have no siblings, but Bucky does some things that rubbed me the wrong way, that honestly really kind of pissed me off. So after the whole meeting with Isaiah Bradley, Sam is really pissed off knowing that there was a secret black super soldier all this time, right? They're arguing in the streets. The cops show up. You know, this is something that could happen in real life. You know, this they're arguing, they're kind of making a scene, not really making a scene. They're just arguing, but the cops show up.
It was definitely there to show what the cop. I mean, it's a very timely reference to what cops and everything.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah, and it's relevant and it's important that they added a scene like that there. But what Bucky does, it's a very small thing, and most people probably aren't annoyed by it. But it annoyed me that Bucky said to Sam, like, because the cops are like, can you at least see your ID? Can you please? First, Sam says, oh, I don't have any ID on me, and they're still asking for it, and Bucky is just like, just show him your ID, man. And Sam was like, no. Like, we're just talking. Why should I show him my ID? And that's what annoyed me is Bucky had the nerve to kind of side with the cops and say, just show him your ID instead of say, no, officers, we are not doing anything wrong. Just leave us alone. Instead, he says to Sam, just show him your ID. Him having the nerve to do that really pissed me off.
But it's also there to show. I mean, it's kind of like we mentioned already about like the it's like about how like you're like I get you're like you're supposed to I think be the writers want you to feel something about that, right? That's why they're putting that in. So that's like the difference between like when you're saying you're getting annoyed or mad or whatever, like are you feeling that because you're supposed to, or are you saying you think that's shit?
Well,
like you don't like the character because of that, or like
yeah. Well, I mean,
because later I do like the scene later where they're like throwing the shield around. It's like almost like they're tossing a football around or whatever, what they're doing with the shield. And then Bucky kind of says like, me and why am I blanking on Captain America's name? Me and
Steve?
Me and Steve, we didn't have that perspective of like what that meant for a black man to pick up the shield. And he like says that to him, especially because they grew up in the 20s and 30s or whatever. Yeah. So he did like, so I think the Bucky character does grow. Like he has a character arc here and grows for the better in this show. But yeah, I think it is to show like how white people and black people see things differently because of their experience. From the cops or from society or whatever. I
agree that Bucky has good character development in this show. That I agree with. But this is one of a few acts of ignorance that Bucky does that annoys me. Like, to answer your question, yes, I think the writers wanted us to be annoyed with the police in that scene. I don't think they intended for people to be annoyed with Bucky. I was annoyed by Bucky just for him having said, saying to Sam, show the cops your ID. Just do it. Just do it. That annoyed me for Bucky saying that. I don't think the writers intended for me to be annoyed by Bucky. That's what I mean. So that was just...
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I think maybe the writers deserve maybe a little more credit than that. But maybe I'm wrong and you're right. But I don't know.
You think the writers wanted the audience to be annoyed with Bucky as well? I don't think so, but I think that was just me.
I don't know about annoyed. I think they're just saying like it's there to show how like I just said, like how a white person might react to this. And is putting, and they're not thinking about all these extra things. They're like, just do it, whatever, it's not a big deal.
Okay, so it makes sense. Yeah, so it makes sense that Bucky said that, but I have reason to be annoyed by him still for doing that.
Yeah, but that's the character. I mean, yeah, that's yeah. I mean,
so that's one act of ignorance that he does. Another thing that this isn't really ignorant, but one thing, I mean, I guess it is kind of, but another thing that he does that really bothers me is Zemo. Like, Zemo is also a main character in this show. Like, we get into this whole thing because more so Bucky than Sam decides we need his help to find the Flag Smashers. We still haven't talked about the Flag Smashers that much yet, but I guess we'll just mention this real quickly. The Flag Smashers are a group of people dubbed terrorists by governments of the world who believe that the world was better during the blip, which was after Thanos' snap and 50% of the population is wiped out, and people who were less fortunate received more attention because there was more acceptance between borders. And then 5 years later, there was another snap by Bruce Banner who brought everybody back. The Flag Smashers liked the world during that 5-year period, basically. Okay, right. And Bucky, more so than Sam, even though both of them are deciding that we need Zemo's help to find these super soldiers, because that's what they are. They all had the super soldier serum, these Flag Smashers. So what I didn't like what Bucky did was he broke Zemo out of prison without fully consulting with Bucky. Like, I mean, with Sam. Sorry. Like, yeah, maybe Sam wouldn't have agreed, but you didn't talk it over with him enough to have just
Well,
decided on your
yeah.
own to do
At
it.
that point, they weren't on the same page, so I don't think he cared about, you know. At that point, they don't care in the narrative. They don't care what each other thinks, or they're going to do what they want. Basically, both of them.
Yeah, but I don't like Zemo though. Like a lot of people ended up liking Zemo
I
after.
mean, he was my favorite character. I'll just say right now, Zemo is, I would say, easily my favorite character on the show, because I just thought he was the most entertaining character. Honestly, the one thing, like, he livened up the show a lot when he was introduced, in my opinion. Like the first two episodes, they were okay, but it wasn't really grabbing me too much. And then when he gets introduced, like I said, I thought it livened up the show. I was liking him more starting in the episode he was in, I would say.
He was
Um,
probably a lot of people's favorites. He became a meme because of his whole like dance, like the whole dancing scene, right? Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
that turned into.
He's a very good actor. Also, Daniel Bruhl,
Yeah.
I believe his name is.
He's.
I've seen him in a couple of things. He's
Mhm.
really good. So
I saw him.
charismatic.
Yeah, he was in the first movie I saw him in was The Bourne Ultimatum, which used to be one of my favorite movies with with Matt Damon.
Oh, right. No, yeah, I remember you saying how those used to be your favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one scene, it was really short, but still, that's the first time that I saw him, and he left an impression on me. I remembered him after that. The next time I saw him was in Inglorious Bastards, which he had a much more infamous role in that movie, which I don't know if you saw, it was Quentin Tarantino. He was.
Oh, yeah. Great scene in that. Yeah.
So he was there.
Of course, yeah.
So and then so yeah, the actor did a great job, and a lot of people loved him after this, but I never forgave him for killing King T'Chaka in Captain America: Civil War, and I was wondering if they were ever going to like really bring that up, and they do. Like the Dora Milaje are also important in the show at a certain point, right? They're annoyed with Bucky for having breaking him out of prison and all of that as well.
They're like the secret service for the Wakanda King, kind of. Or is that? Yeah.
Yeah, there's special forces or the secret services, what have you, whatever you want to call them. So they break Zemo out of prison, and the show tends to kind of make Zemo not as much of a villain anymore. But I never liked him from beginning to end, despite of how much, like, I can agree that he kind of livened up the show or whatever, but I still didn't like the character. I never forgave him for what he did, honestly. So I never liked him. I never liked the character. Period. I gotta be honest with you that was the thing. But speaking of Zemo, there were several parts of this show that kind of, like, writing wise, I guess, that kind of annoyed me. Three in particular. Three instances where the characters take their eyes off of him and he goes and does his own thing. Number one was in Madripoor. We were talking about Sharon Carter earlier and how she's a power broker and everything. That episode where she's also reintroduced, where they're in Madripoor, they're in that container with Dr. Nagel, and they're kind of questioning him. Both Sam and Bucky take their eyes off of Zemo. He goes and
that was their mistake, not anything like you can't, like, that's their fault, not his.
20 movies in, how can you make the mistake of taking your eyes off of someone you technically have hostage? Come on, like, after everything that these superheroes have done, can't you remember to not take your eyes off of someone like that? So that's the first time it happens, okay? The first time everybody takes their eyes off of Zemo, he leaves, does his own thing, comes back and kills that mad scientist, right? That was instance number one. Instance number two is when they were looking for, I think the character's name was Danya Madani, the adoptive mother of Carly Morgan, right? The leader of the Flag Smashers. They're searching around, I think in Latvia, and even though Bucky is with Zemo, they start doing some social distancing, and at a certain point, Zemo says,
that's when I think this production did get interrupted by COVID and had to be. So that was probably filmed after.
Well, I was half joking when I said social distancing. What I meant was that
I know.
Between
but you're talking about, like, I actually really like this part a lot. So, like, that's why I like the Zemo character. He's smart and he gets the job. And he's charismatic. And so, like, Bucky doesn't know how to treat people or talk to the kids or whatever. So Zemo goes in and, like, easily talks to the little girl, gets the information, does like gets everything accomplished. Like I thought that was great.
Turkish delight. Yeah, I mean, what the end goal was to find Carly, right? That's not really what bothered me. What bothered me was at a certain point, Zemo says to the little kids, "You see those two men right there?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Zemo has his own goals. Like he's not with that, you
I
know.
know, but if Bucky was standing right next to Zemo when he said that, he wouldn't have dared to said that to those little kids, and that's only because Bucky turned an eye and walked away. Is that like Zemo was able
So
to get to those kids?
maybe I misunderstood what this list of three is. This is more things you don't like about Bucky.
List of things where Zemo gets away with things because everybody doesn't pay attention to Zemo. That's
Okay.
number one. Number two. Number three was when Walker fights the Dora Milaje in Zemo's penthouse
Hotel or whatever. Yeah.
hotel. It's something he owns because he's like a billionaire.
I guess it's penthouse. Yeah.
So the Dora Milaje show up to take Zemo, but Walker is there, and Walker also wants to arrest Zemo. And he puts his hand on one of the Dora Milaje's shoulders like an idiot, and a fight ensues. Eventually, Sam and Bucky jumps into the fight as well. Because they do that, they take their eyes off of Zemo, and Zemo escapes. So 3 times, I count, in this show, where the main characters take their eyes off of Zemo, and he gets away with doing his own thing.
Yeah. So you think this was just a bad writing, or like you think this was like a narrative convenience, all these things, and that wouldn't really be realistic, that they wouldn't let that happen?
It wouldn't be realistic that these superheroes who have gone through 10 years of events would not have the common sense to take their eyes off of someone who they should be keeping their eyes on. That's basically what it is. These are experienced superheroes. They should know better.
I guess with the instances of the first one and the third one, there was a lot going on, especially in the third one when they're all fighting in the room and stuff. So,
well, they didn't have to.
know.
If I were Sam and Bucky, I wouldn't have intervened. I would have let the Dora Milaje kick Walker's ass. I wouldn't have intervened. Okay, that's honestly that could have been avoided, and then Zemo wouldn't have gotten away. All right, that's just my opinion. Man.
But he doesn't get away ultimately. I mean, so what happens to him at the end? He's like in jail in Wakanda right now, or is that what?
He's not in jail in Wakanda. He's in jail in the raft. You remember the jail? Like, you remember Captain America: Civil War after the?
Where they were all okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, he's in that jail. So I.
Well, who runs that?
Something. Where is it? It's hidden in the ocean, I think.
No, but who's like in charge of that, or who oversees that?
It's unclear.
Why did Wakanda give him up, I guess?
Yeah,
is the question.
Wakanda, I guess, I was about to say maybe the Dora Milaje are, but it's unclear at this point who's in charge of the raft. I think it might be General Ross, actually, Betty Ross's father, the general who was in Captain America: Civil War. I don't know if you remember the guy who was giving the pep talk to the Avengers about like how they need to be put in check and stuff. I think he's the one who's in charge of it.
Okay.
But,
unless it takes too long to explain, can you remind me why Zemo killed King, whatever his name is, T'Chaka in the first place?
Yes, he did that. I mean, it's not like he had anything against Wakanda as a country. The only reason he did that was to start a chain reaction of the Avengers, pitting them against each other. He did that so that some of the Avengers and the world's governments would know that Bucky is still the Winter Soldier and an enemy of the state and everything, while Steve knows that that's not the case, and a fight would ensue among them, from the inside, and eventually would all blow up in their faces later on, so that Zemo would have his end goal of just ending all superhuman people. He
that's what he's against, because he was trying to, his whole point in this show is trying to get rid of the super serum.
Yes. He hates, I don't know if he hates superheroes. I guess he does. He just hates super powered people, and that's why
he's trying to fix society for how he thinks it should be. It shouldn't have that.
He has his own ideals of that. Like, he hated Hydra and he hated the Avengers, so he didn't side with either of them, and that's why, essentially, does that make sense to you? Like, why he killed?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, all of that. Those were the 3 instances of Zemo's character that I was annoyed by. So you can call it bad writing.
He's kind of an anti-hero too, in a way, I guess. At least he's not a super villain or anything. Well, maybe he is. I don't. I
in the
mean, he has the
comic.
markings of a supervillain, kind of,
But
I don't know.
my loyalty is with Wakanda, man. I never forgave him for killing King T'Chaka. They can make him as likable as he wants, but I'm never going to like him for that. He was never sorry for what he did. He never seemed apologetic for what he did, even though
No.
he didn't. It wasn't anything personal, but still, you it still doesn't make
But I
sense.
like that in a character, though, at least of like, at least he's sticking to his ideals, even if they're wrong or morally incorrect, rather than like, I don't know. I like, yeah, I like his character. I don't know.
I mean, yeah,
I
I
assume he's not going to be staying in that jail under the sea forever.
no, probably not. The Marvel Studios probably has plans for him. You even said that you liked him. He's your favorite character. He was probably the favorite among a lot of other characters, a lot of other fans as well. My bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, because part of the reason is Sam and Bucky just aren't that like you said, they do have good chemistry with each other, but and Bucky has an interesting backstory, obviously, but on their own, they're just neither of them are that interesting, I think, at least personally. So, or they're just not, like I said, how it livens up the show with this other character. Like they just don't, I don't know. As opposed to like WandaVision, where I think Wanda and Vision, I didn't necessarily think this before the show, but in the show, they did like, I was cool with just having scenes with just them for, a lot of an episode or whatever. Where on this, if it's just like Bucky and Sam, even if they're doing their own thing or together, yeah, it just wasn't as, it needed more, I think.
yeah, I'm not complaining
Um,
about Zemo's inclusion in the show. He had an important
no,
role
I
to
know.
play. It's just I don't like him.
But
That's
I'm also trying to, I think I'm giving some explanation of, I think, why his character ended up being pretty popular.
yeah.
Because
I mean,
it's in contrast to these other guys.
I can understand. Yeah, it makes sense to me
Um,
how he became a fan favorite character. So like I understand it. It's not like it's like it doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense
yeah.
to me, but for reasons I've already stated, he's never going to be a
Mhm.
character that I like. Just for me personally. But yeah, one of the two instances that I mentioned to you of characters taking their eyes off of him was in Madripoor. It was the scene where they're questioning Dr. Nagel and him creating a new version of the super soldier serum where it doesn't really make a character brawling. He said he perfected the serum so that when you inject it in your bloodstream, your body doesn't turn into that of a bodybuilder like it did for Steve Rogers, right? You stay maintaining the same body just with the strength of Captain America.
Because Walker was buff already and he didn't change physically.
He seemed we never seen him with his shirt off or anything, but he seemed pretty lean, yeah. And he didn't get any bigger after he took the serum, yeah.
Yeah.
But I gotta say that scene in the container was really awkward to me because Sharon was constantly warning Sam and Bucky that mercenaries are coming for the bounty, and they continue to question Dr. Nagel while she's just kicking ass by herself outside, right?
Mhm.
And it was really awkward to me how Sam and Bucky, neither of them really cared that Sharon was fighting by herself outside, buying time for them. And then she ends up kicking all of their asses enough and buys enough time for her to run up to the container and say, we're really out of time. But then more mercenaries show up, and then by that time is when Dr. Nagel is killed, right? And then they all escape. I'm just saying that scene seemed pretty awkward, and the whole
Yeah.
Madripoor storyline was a little bit awkward to me because it started off with the three of them going to Madripoor looking for the power broker and a character named Selby in some nightclub, right? In some weird rave like nightclub, and it seemed like they were on their way to finding out more about the power broker until Sam gets a phone call from his sister and he has to sort of pretend to be somebody else. Like
Yeah,
that,
he
I
was
guess,
already
is kind of,
pretending to be someone else. Yeah.
yeah. Well, he pretending to not be Sam Wilson. He's pretending to be.
But he was being supposed to be someone specific that
Yeah.
Zemo told him to pretend to be. Yeah.
Right. But I just that I feel like is kind of convenient writing that this character forgot to put his phone on vibrate or turn off his phone and gets a phone call, an international call from his sister about a personal matter, that kind of messed up their whole plan. That I felt like a little bit of convenient writing. Like how would it have gone if their plan, went through? Because they're looking for the power broker, right? Who's actually Sharon. How would it have gone otherwise? We won't know because that's how they ended up being. They meant for
Yeah.
the whole thing to get messed up. right? And then the power broker herself later saves their lives, like later on in that scene when they're like on the streets and she kills people after them.
So it goes back to who actually put the hit out on the Bucky and Sam. Like, was it people working for her that didn't realize that she wouldn't want that, or did she just do it? Like, is that like a plot hole? I'm trying to think now.
I think it was her. It might have been her herself. Like I think she might have her own motives. Like you were asking about the finale and like if she going to be like a villain or something.
Clearly it's setting up that she is going to be an antagonist, right?
I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry.
But like in Madripoor, which again that's a fake place. Yeah, they should just use fake places like this. But anyway, what did she have to gain by doing that? I'm saying because she obviously doesn't want Sam to be killed for now, at least. I don't think she wants that in general. It doesn't seem like. So like, why was she just keeping up appearances somehow that this power broke, like for their purpose, like that there's a power broker? Because someone could have like got in and killed her. I know she's pretty badass, but like someone could have slipped through and got her. Yeah, like you said, she is just out there by herself picking all these people up. So I don't know.
I don't think we know enough about the power broker's organization to know what exactly her end goal is or what she would gain from killing some of the Avengers. Like another big question, this might not be a big deal, or maybe it is, like the person on the other line that she calls right after she gets pardoned by the government, like, right? Like who is she talking to? Who she just...
By the unnamed senator.
I have an idea of who it could be, and I'll talk to you more about that once we talk more about the finale.
Okay.
But the next...
we are already over an hour now.
Are we? I haven't paid attention to time wise, but the next big event I would say that happens in this show, we still haven't even gone to talk about the Flag Smashers, but we're going to talk about them a little bit now. The next big thing that happens, I would say, is the death of Nico, which is the scene after Walker gets his ass handed to him by the Dora Milaje, and he even says, "Oh, they weren't even super soldiers."
Yeah, I liked that.
I liked it too. I liked it too. And that was also the same scene where it's revealed that Bucky's arm can be detached. You know.
Yeah, but you weren't paying attention because you were mad about Zemo getting away.
Well, I mean, to put more emphasis on that, I saw some fans saying that it was wrong, ethically wrong of them to put a safe space.
Oh, about his arm getting off. Yeah, I mean, that's a little... I saw that too because like it was like a trending on Twitter or something. It was like a big thing. That is one of the few things I did see about fan reaction to the show, but...
No, I was I don't know because I mean I'm not even gonna say I kind of get it because I don't. The only counter to that is how there was the cold opening to one of the episodes with Bucky in Wakanda, and Ayo is repeating the words of the Winter Soldier that activates him, and he's able to fight it, and she says, "Now you are free." And I guess the counter to that is if he's free, then how come you made a
they're still having safeties in place or whatever, protections. I think it makes sense. I don't know.
I was totally fine with it.
They can't like remove it remotely from Wakanda or something, right? They actually have to do something, touch it physically, right? If they could remove it at any time remotely, I would say maybe that would be a little too much, but
I don't know if they can. I mean, we didn't even know that it was possible. We just learned that that's possible to do it right there, like on the arm.
Because he didn't even know, right? Obviously, right? So yeah.
Of course. They asked him, like, "Did you know they could do that?" And he's like, "No, I didn't know." So.
Well, the Flag Smashers. So that's like the main kind of thrust of the plot in general of the show. They're the main antagonist of this season. Well, it wasn't too interesting to me, but. I
can't even say if they were the main antagonist because we were meant to care about them. Like with Sam cared about Carly, the leader of them. So I wouldn't even say they were the main antagonist.
They're the main. I mean, they're the main like. Cause
they're the main antagonist. I don't think they were meant to be, but you can argue that they were. I think the argument can be made that they were. But
well, I think you're supposed to get like, oh, they might have some of the right idea, or like it's understandable why they're doing this, but ultimately they were like that's who's being fought at the end of the final episode. So I think they are technically like the.
Sam even says, like, Sam says to Carly, "I agree with your fight, just not with your methods." He says something along those lines, right? But There are a few things about the Flag Smashers that I guess enough of it that solidifies me not liking them, which is number one, they blow up a building with a bunch of GRC members in it, and one of the Flag Smashers is visibly uncomfortable by it, but Carly isn't, and she even says this is the only language that these people know. It's like she didn't even react, like she had no feeling to it, like a freaking sociopath.
Well, you have to at that point. I think that is realistic as well. Like, if someone in this position has gotten there because they can tamp down their emotions to that degree and do what's necessary or whatever to kill all these people. But it is ultimately always hypocritical of like groups like that. I mean, this is like what terrorist groups are and stuff, essentially.
How am I supposed to? Yeah, go ahead. No, sorry.
So they think they have to, because of the injustice in the world or whatever, they have to fight fire with fire, etc. You know, well, and then the ends justify the means. That's what Carly's thinking, right?
That might be what she's thinking, but how am I supposed to sympathize with someone? That scene wasn't fighting fire with fire, man. That was just fighting with fire. Like, those people were tied up. There was no way they were able to fight back, and they weren't fighters. They were probably just regular people who worked for the GRC. You know, it's not even anything like the death scene of Nico, which people will argue that he wasn't fighting, he wasn't defending himself, but that's different because he was actually a fighter. He was a super soldier who was fighting before that. So that's the next major scene that I wanted to talk to you about. There were so many people saying how, you know, including yourself, about how Walker crossed the line having killed Nico the way he killed him. I can't fully agree with that for a few reasons. Let me preface this by saying how he's constantly compared to Steve Rogers. And the thing is, I already told you that I didn't like Steve Rogers that much. So it's not like Captain America Steve Rogers is some golden standard of a superhero to live up to. When Steve Rogers was operating as Captain America, he did some shameful things. So I didn't like everything that the original Captain America did either. So that's the preface of this. Now, the next thing I will say is that when Carly killed Lamar, she ran away. Like, I mean, she had this look on her face like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that, but she did. She killed him and she ran away. And then a chase scene ensues and Walker kills Nico. He beats, like, he's able to beat him, which I kind of enjoyed seeing Nico getting knocked out, okay? Because I was annoyed by what happened right before then. Lamar was killed. I liked Lamar. I really, really liked Lamar, and I hated how he was killed off, almost like a plot device for this to happen, right? Like, Lamar got done dirty.
That is what it was, yeah. I mean, because he is essentially, that character is there to be the kind of tether to
Walker,
to Walker's good nature, or etc., or his his. It's like, I know he's married too. I guess he has a wife and whatever, but like, we didn't see much of her, and like this is his guy from the war and all this stuff. Like, that's his, like, that's like part of who he is. So when you take that away, that's when he goes haywire, you know?
Right.
Okay. So it's like a symbolic thing as well. But I take your point that, like, is that good writing to just create a character like that just for that purpose?
Just to kill him off. So
not necessarily, but
this is so. Nico's pleading with Walker, saying it wasn't me, and then Walker then proceeds in his rage, in his super soldier serum, almost like I guess.
So, like, Steve Rogers, whatever your criticism of him, he would never do something like this, right?
Okay, here's where I disagree with you. Do you remember the actual style in which Nico was killed? Walker was hovering over him with the shield and was smashing
his face in
his face or his chest. We don't see, but it could, like, smashing him in and killing him. This was the same exact way that Steve was fighting Tony at the end of Captain America Civil War. I don't know if you remember, that's the exact same position they were in. And Steve almost killed Tony for trying to kill Bucky. Okay, he stops, but he was on the verge of murdering Tony for trying to go after Bucky after he had just found out that Bucky killed his parents. Okay, and you mean to tell me that Steve Rogers would never go that far? I think it's I would even argue that that's just caping for Steve Rogers, because we never saw Steve go that far. We never saw Steve get pushed over the edge, seeing his loved one killed right before his eyes, and then in a rage doing something like that.
I guess that's a fair point. I guess that's a pretty good point. So that's true. Um, Obviously didn't remember that, but 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 I guess I will. Yeah, I guess it's a fair point. I was thinking it more that it's just like a kind of a random guy that he's chasing down, that he wouldn't do that. But yeah, he did just kill his friend. That's the main reason he's
that wasn't a random guy, and he was guilty.
Not random, but you know what I mean. Like the proper thing to do would be to try to take them into custody and not smash their face in once they're already, they're already like getting.
Yeah, well, Sam and Bucky saw it happen. I don't know if they were too split up at that time, but if they weren't, they could have tried stopping him then too, but they didn't. So, yeah, I mean, the closest thing that Steve was to that position was watching Bucky fall off of the train in the first Captain America movie, but that was kind of like, I mean, that was indirectly Hydra's fault, sure, or the captain of whatever that guy's name was, I forget the character's name, but that was indirectly their fault. But that was kind of ultimately that was kind of an accident, Bucky falling off of the train. But what happened to Lamar was straight murder right in front of Walker. And even though
but again, it wasn't the guy who did it.
It wasn't the guy who did it, but he was the accomplice in the murder. He was holding Walker back so that Carly was able to kill him. So he was part of the reason. Yes, he may not have been the one who pulled the trigger, but he was involved in the murder. So he's still guilty. He's not guilty of the murder, but he's guilty by association. Does he deserve to die for that? No. Did Walker go too far? I guess so. Yeah, that's debatable. But let's not pretend like Steve Rogers wouldn't have done the same thing too, because like I said, he almost did the same thing.
Okay, fair enough.
But what also kind of annoys me to a point is how the show is constantly putting in our heads that Nico wasn't the one who killed Lamar. Nico wasn't the one who killed Lamar, as if the show even cares that Lamar just died. Like I told you just like 5 minutes ago, the show did Lamar dirty, okay? He's kind of forgotten, like the character is sort of like kind of, his legacy isn't really remembered, because the only two things we get is a mention of him in the end of the show, which is still kind of doing him dirty because of what Carly said. She's not apologetic at all about what she did. The second was the next episode where Walker visits his family,
the parents, right?
And the family even asks, "Oh, you killed somebody. Was he the one who did it?" Like they're constantly like pounding us in the head that, oh, the person that Walker killed wasn't the person who did it, but he was there. Like he was there and he was involved in it. Like it's not like he wasn't guilty and part of the murder. He kind of was. Not kind of, he was.
But I think but ultimately it's like, is anything justified anyway? Like if he, like, let's say Nico did pull the trigger, as you say, and the same thing happened, is that still even justified? Like so maybe his Lamar's mom or whatever, or grandma, feels better with like this eye for an eye thing, but ultimately it's like, I mean, that's what you're supposed to be thinking, I think, of all this stuff. Like,
right. Either way, the right thing
to do. Right.
Yeah. Either way, the right thing to do would be to, I mean, maybe beat the shit out of him and not kill him, but then arrest him. Right. That would have been the right thing to do. But Walker acted on emotion, and did what.
It's kind of like is it supposed to be like equivalent of like steroids or something with a super serum? You're not thinking clearly also, or something?
I guess. I mean, they had a short conversation about it, right? Like after
Lamar actually wanted him to, he like kind of indirectly told him you should take it. Obviously he didn't know that he had it, but yeah, so that was interesting.
It was, I mean, I don't think they had it yet at that point. I think that was before, like, they had that altercation with the Flag Smashers, and then Zemo starts smashing them.
I'm pretty sure it was after, because I think at that point we know as an audience, and like Walker knows that he could take it if he hasn't already, but he's just feeling out Lamar, about it.
Right.
But Lamar obviously doesn't know that he picked up one of them. I believe that was the case.
I honestly don't really remember, but But yeah, I mean, then the next episode, episode 5, takes up right after that scene ended, and it starts with a 2-versus-1 fight, Bucky, Sam versus Walker, and Bucky again says like he's not the one who killed Lamar. Like again, like I have to keep hearing the same thing again, as if Nico wasn't guilty. Like, come on, Bucky, you're just. I almost feel like Bucky was just saying that as like, oh, like this happened, and now let's get the shield back. Like, oh, like now we have enough of a reason to say you don't deserve that shield. We need to get it back.
I mean, I think that is true. Yeah, I definitely think that's the case.
You mean with Bucky saying that, like him saying like
he would want to use any excuse to do that.
Yeah, true. So that fight ensues, and then like they're able to get the shield back after that, and then somebody mentions I think it was Torres actually who mentions, because I think it was Torres who mentions that, because during that fight, Walker destroys Sam's wings. Right? Like he pulls him down and destroys his original wings. But they get the shield back into their position. Walker is fired for being Captain America, and then recruited by some other future shady organization. And then Sam then has to rethink the whole, picking up the mantle of Captain America thing. But Torres at some point, when Sam is walking out, and Torres says, "What about these wings?" and he says, "Keep them." I'll just let you know about this. I think this might be the start of a new Falcon, because now that Sam is the new Captain America, there might be a new
Torres
Falcon.
is going to be his new Falcon.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens in the comics too. But
that's probably true. Yeah.
Torres also says to Sam that like Carly is really, really, really laying low because of what just happened. But we see that that's not really the case. She's still out in the open. She's operating the same way she has.
Went to New York, the biggest. So he was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And people constantly make comparisons to Sam and Steve, and how Sam says things similar to Steve, like that meme of how, that German scientist who said, "I don't want the perfect soldier, but a good man to be to take the super soldier serum." And Steve didn't sign the Sokovia Accords in Captain America Civil War. He was saying that Wanda is just a kid, and shouldn't be held up in a compound. And Sam is saying that Carly is just a kid and misunderstood. Man, I don't agree with that. Okay? She's a young woman, okay? She's an adult. She's making very adult decisions. She's murdering people. So no, I wouldn't say that she's just a kid. But more to that, before Nico was murdered, here's another thing with Bucky that actually kind of annoyed me. Sam tried to talk it over with Carly before things blew over, right? And Bucky stops Walker from trying to walk through and interrupt their meeting, but then Walker says to him, like, he's your partner and he might be in danger, and you're just gonna let something like that happen. Bucky allowed Walker to get to him and interrupt that meeting. That was stupid. Bucky shouldn't have trusted someone he already didn't like to begin with and just let that meeting end.
So, I don't think he was really trusting him, but it just was like, I mean, I think Walker would have got through regard. Like I don't think Bucky could have really held him back.
No.
Also, Lamar was still there too.
Serum by then, Bucky could have stopped. He definitely could have stopped both of them, Lamar and Walker.
Maybe, but it wasn't worth at that point, like having an altercation. I think it makes sense. I mean, it's another narrative thing. Obviously, it's going to get interrupted. Like some of these things, it is a TV show. They just have to have.
I mean, I'm super critical of this TV show because it aims so high in terms of storytelling. So after that happens, after the meeting is interrupted anyway, Carly calls Sam's sister, Sarah, and kind of threatens her for another meeing. And
not just kind of, she directly threatens her, basically.
But even after that, Sam is still trying to I guess, side with her, be like, trying to calm her down or sympathize.
I was not trying to side with her. He's trying to diffuse the situation. Like I think he does understand to some degree what they're about. But he is like weighing what the government has done to his people and etc.
I know that Sam is,
and so he's trying to see it, even though it's obviously we know it's not going to work. He's trying to like get her to back down.
I know, right. I understand what you're saying. I know Sam is trying to do the right thing, but Carly just made it personal she called his sister with a threat.
Mm.
If someone does that to you, are you really gonna be okay? I don't know.
No, probably not. But is that the wrong thing though? I mean, I guess if you are supposed to be a hero, protector of the country, protector of the world, that is the right instinct probably that you would want, rather than flying off the handle and smashing her face in with a shield because you
Right,
threatened
okay.
your sister.
Well,
You know,
I would say then he should have acted with more force. He shouldn't have. He was still by the finale. We're getting to the finale next. We might as well get into it now because we've talked about
I
that.
think, yeah, and about the Sam character, I think he is, at least until the finale, and he decides to pick up the shield. He decides to be Captain America. He's giving the whole speech with the politicians on, all this stuff. I think up to this point, we're supposed to see him as kind of a passive character to some degree, where he's not making the decision. He's not like, he wants to have some things both ways, right? Even we see he wasn't there to help his sister maintain their family business, but he still wants to have the business, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want the shield, but he still wants to fight against the people are trying to go after, all this stuff. He's not, as a character, he's not going hard enough one way or the other, and he, like I said, he is being somewhat passive. So his character arc is getting rid of that and like making a strong decision.
By episode 5 and 6 is when we get to that point. Yeah, that like he's reconsidering the fact that Steve wanted him to be the new Captain America, and this is around the time that they start bonding, right? Like Bucky is hanging around their house and the yacht and helping out and stuff, and Bucky even says, "Listen, neither I could have understood, and maybe Steve didn't even understand what it meant to hand the shield to a black man to become the new Captain America." And this is also relevant,
which we talked about,
to how you were mentioning earlier, Isaiah saying to Sam, saying that no, they will never let a black man be Captain America, and even if they did, no self-respecting black man would. So I can half agree with that, because I think
unless he gets a statue made for me, then he's cool, right? Then I'll let him do it.
I took issue with that as part of the finale too, which we'll get into in a sec. But speaking of the finale, more to do with that kind of annoyed me. Another thing with Bucky that annoyed me was when Ayo was there in Latvia, and he spoke in the Wakandan language, saying to Ayo that like he's a means to an end, justifying the fact that he broke Zemo out of prison. Like, he had the nerve to do that to even the special forces of Wakanda. Like, maybe that doesn't bother you, but that kind of sort of bothered me. But when they find Zemo in the end, I think he's in Russia actually, and Zemo's about to accept his fate. I think he doesn't run away. He's about to accept his fate. Remember, he was going to kill himself at the end of Captain America: Civil War. I don't know if you remember, but T'Challa.
Just assume I'd remember basically nothing about it, I would say.
No. So, just to refresh your memory, then in the end of Captain America,
he was going to kill himself. Yeah,
he was.
He's fine with dying. Yeah.
Yes, but T'Challa stops him and says, "The living are not done with you yet." So he's about to accept his fate. Bucky killing him, but doesn't, and then the Dora Milaje shows up.
So it's another mirroring of that then. Yeah, it's
kind of sort of, yeah. But then the last thing that Bucky says is, "I need one more favor from you," which then leads to this mystery box that Sam receives from Wakanda, right? And it's we don't see what it is at the end of the episode, but then in the next episode we see that it's basically just a new suit. And if that's all it was, I don't think they had to make like this big huge mystery of what is it that Sam is receiving, right? If all it is a new suit.
Well, was it really supposed to be a big mystery? I didn't necessarily take it like it was, I guess. I guess I didn't really think.
Then why didn't they show it to us? If it wasn't going to be a mystery, they could have just showed us what was in the box.
Well, I guess I don't remember the sequence well enough. Yeah.
I mean, the sequence kind of ended with Sam opening it. Like, there's a look on his face, and then that's it. We don't see what's in the box.
Was it just the new wings, or was the whole Captain America suit and everything?
I mean, where would he have gotten the suit? Actually, no, it is probably just the wings, because the suit isn't made out of vibranium.
Well, that's what I want to ask, actually. Did he like it was not really clear to me from in the finale episode. He just basically shows up as Captain America.
Yeah.
Did he get any permission from anyone to be that, or
No,
he just decided?
At that point, he self-proclaimed
Okay.
Captain America, I think. Yeah.
It wasn't 100% clear to me because he was already acting like he was that, and there was no issues. I guess there's not because they wanted him to be in the first place, but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. That's why I was saying I can.
It does feel like maybe a little scene was missing or something almost there.
Well, so I will. What I will say to you, I know we're nearing the end of this. What I will mention to you is that a lot of the show, it's rumored to have been cut and redone because there was supposed to be like some virus subplot. Apparently, the Flag Smashers' original plan was to unleash like a virus onto the world, and that would obviously have way
too timely. Yeah. Like we're gonna comment on the police brutality stuff, but this other stuff is too. Yeah. No, so, I mean, I think it's fine because, like I was saying, the show felt a little overstuffed as it was with all the plot lines there.
Because it was only 6 episodes. If it was more, if it was 10 episodes, then or even 9 episodes like WandaVision.
Yeah, they could have let it breathe a little more. I don't know, but then again, there might have led to more boring parts, like some of the first couple episodes had. So
possibly,
I don't know. As we've been talking about this, so I think I do like I was kind of saying or maybe I didn't say this yet, but I liked the show overall. Like I enjoyed watching it. Like I was perfectly fine sitting down watching it. I didn't have so many criticisms, but it didn't grab me too much either. Completely. I wasn't like with WandaVision. I was like, oh, it's Friday. I'm excited for the new WandaVision episode, and I wasn't really having that with this. And it was more of like the typical Marvel stuff, like we thought it was going to probably be. But as we're talking about it, I am putting the pieces together a little more on what the writing was and like the themes and stuff, and it's not bad. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It aims high, like I said, but it just doesn't do everything it sets out to do. Which that's the best way that I can explain it. And since we're on the topic of the finale, some of the things about it that I liked and disliked. I didn't like Carly Morgenthau at all. Like I didn't like her methods.
Yeah.
To me, like Sam even says to the senator at the end, you got to stop calling the Flag Smashers terrorists. Even though I think it can be argued that despite they have a fight that's worthy, their methods are the methods of a terrorist organization. So they were. Sam, whether you like it or not, they were terrorists. Yeah. Okay. I didn't like how he wasn't fighting back. I found that to be really stupid, how he was still trying to appeal to Carly's better nature during that fight and wasn't fighting back. And then eventually Carly is killed. And I'm glad that she was killed because she was enough unsympathetic character that I wouldn't want her to be redeemed. I wanted her to be killed off.
I think it's another I mean, it's meant to show the contrast again between him and Walker and why he really deserves to be Captain America. Like that's the point, I think. Well,
so he definitely is. I mean, they were both Captain America in the show, and he is definitely a better Captain America than Walker. But Walker, I think, was hated on a little bit too much. Like I understood. Well, I'm
not even talking about fan reaction or anything at this point. I'm just saying from the writing perspective, that's why I think it was set up this way because.
Yeah, I mean, from a rational perspective, the only things that Walker did that really offended me was, I mean, he didn't offend me at taking up the mantle. I just feel like he didn't earn the title of Captain America. But besides that, the only other thing that he did that really bothered me was lying to Lamar's family and saying that Nico was the one who killed. him.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think that was probably just the better decision, even if this happened in real life. Like. It's just better to tell the family what they want to hear at that point. I mean,
yes, but more along the like we talked about Lamar before, but he deserved better. Like at the very least, he deserved like a funeral scene, in my opinion. There was kind of like a funeral scene in the beginning of the show for Steve, I think, because Rhodey was there. You remember Rhodey from the Iron Man movies, like Tony's best friend? Yeah, I thought after seeing him there that he was going to portray like a bigger role. Wikipedia mentions how he was supposed to be like a mentor figure for Sam, but he wasn't. It was practically a cameo, and he wasn't there ever again after.
Yeah, it was literally a cameo, I would say. Yeah. But anyway, not even to get into all this Walker stuff again. Just about that, how he reacts to Carly versus Walker. You know how he reacts in this situation versus Walker. I think that's the point. Like
Fine,
the
but Carly continues to do things that make me not sympathize with her and honestly kind of hate her. Like she says to Walker when he shows up that I didn't mean to kill your friend. I don't want to kill people who don't matter. That's so insensitive to say something like that. She's
Well,
not.
you're not. I really don't think you're supposed to sympathize with her.
Then why is Sam like? There's the whole thing with Sam carrying her dead body, like flying with her dead body. I'm pretty sure we are supposed to sympathize with her, man.
It's not that you're supposed to sympathize with her so much specifically as a person or character.
But
It's the theme. It's the point of like violence begets violence. All this stuff like that. Like this shouldn't have happened ever in the first place. That's
Sam was very sorry that Carly died. Sam didn't want that to happen. He was very sorry about that, and I wasn't. She was about to kill him.
Yeah. Well, I guess Sam isn't the surrogate. Maybe not meant to be like the audience surrogate character. I mean, always the protagonist is in a way, but like you don't have to feel, the same way that the main character does. You can still. I still understand what they're going for.
I don't know about that, man. You remember at the end of WandaVision when Monica was saying to Wanda that these people will never know what you sacrificed for them, and she's like, it doesn't matter who, like it doesn't matter how, it wouldn't change how they would feel about me anyway. I'm pretty sure the audience is supposed to be feeling the same thing Monica is. I didn't, but I'm like, why else would Monica say such a thing? That just makes me disagree with Monica more, honestly. I
guess that's a good point. At least it's a good parallel. But I also agree or disagree or whatever. Like I don't necessarily know if that's what they're going for or not. I don't know. Maybe you're right, and that they are. But
well, I can't. I mean, I never had a conversation with the writer of the show. I
Oh, you didn't? You weren't checking in over?
No, man. Sorry to disappoint.
I guess you wouldn't be talking to me if you had a line to that.
Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that.
But you did like the finale overall. You were saying,
I liked the finale. I liked the things that happened in the finale. It aimed high, but it just didn't set out like it concluded the show. But the show and the finale aimed high, but it didn't set out exactly what it set out to achieve. So, like Carly was killed off. And then Sam had this conversation with this old white senator that he was saying, listen, yes, this person, you're calling them terrorists, call them what you will, but she was fighting you for a reason, and you have to take that into consideration. And normally, news broadcasts like that doesn't happen in real life, with big things like that, with Captain America talking to the senator. It was necessary to happen because we needed that resolution. We needed Sam to fight the fight that the Flag Smashers were doing. Like he needed to do that for them. So that I felt like was a little bit awkward because things like that don't happen live, on.
No,
TV.
that was like a very TV show movie thing, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not too mad at it because, like you're saying, it was kind of necessary, and it gives Anthony Mackie actually something to work with a little more, like a nice speech and all this stuff, But
there was also, Anthony Mackie, the actor, even said like at first he wasn't totally sure if he wanted to be a part of this show because he didn't want to be part of the first failure of Marvel, but. If you put it that way, I would say there were more than a few "quote unquote" failures of Marvel before.
Why did he think it was going to be a failure?
I don't. It was. I guess it was going to be a show based on a black man becoming the new Captain America. I don't know too much about it. That was just some sleuthing I did from reading on Wikipedia. I can link that in the description as well, along with our WandaVision review. But. Yeah, the finale did show that Walker, for those who did hate him, that he wasn't all bad, because when it came down to chasing down Carly for revenge, he decided to save the people in the truck, who I guess had a vibranium spider on it, and that's why Bucky wasn't able to.
He tried, at least. He wasn't able to.
He tried, but yeah, he was trying to do the right thing.
He tried instead of getting the revenge. Yeah,
should have been able to whoop all of the Flag Smashers' asses though, because he was, not only does he also have the serum in his bloodstream, but he was also a soldier. They were just civilians who got the serum, so they shouldn't have been able to.
I guess they've had it for longer though. Could be an argument, but yeah, I don't know.
We never learned to fight though. They don't know any martial. We saw him kicking their asses 2 episodes earlier, so it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't win fighting against them, in my opinion. So that's another little nitpick, but The other big thing about the two things actually. So another thing about the finale is Sam showing his due diligence and showing his respect to Isaiah Bradley, and in the Captain America Museum, there's now a whole section dedicated to him. And Sam says, "Now this country will always remember what you did for this country." So that was nice. That was nice, and that's definitely well deserved. But that's the least you could do for Mr. Bradley, and I say that because this country also did him very, very dirty. He was arrested, put in jail, experimented on for 30 years. Sam should have said something like, and everybody will know what you did for this country and what this country did to you. Another, like, he deserved more than just like a memoriam in a museum. He deserved way more than that. The country owes him more than that for how dirty they did him, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're gonna see more. I don't think we're gonna see more retribution or payments due respect done for Isaiah Bradley. I think this memoriam was
probably not. Probably not. So, I mean,
that's another.
Unless they are gonna. I mean, maybe if they do with the nephew or grandson, whatever it is, character, if they do more with him, like you're saying, they might. Then maybe, but
possibly. But I think that'll be his nephew or his grandson doing his own thing, separate. But yeah, that's just maybe. But I don't. See
you're saying Sam personally should do more?
No, not Sam. Well, Sam was the one who I guess lobbied for a section in that museum. But
yeah, if
he did that, then he, as Captain America, would also probably have the star power now of being able to do more politically for Isaiah Bradley, bringing him out of the shadows.
We'll see what happens. I don't know.
I don't think anything is going to happen, and that's another reason why I'm saying that this finale aimed high and fell flat, because it was meant to show that this country is redeeming Isaiah Bradley, but it wasn't enough to me. It wasn't enough done. So that's another thing. The next thing, which I think is kind of wrapping things up, is the ending with Bucky. Bucky returns to the elderly gentleman and says
Japanese guy.
Yeah, and says to him that basically confesses that he was a Winter Soldier and he killed his son and he didn't have a choice, and that's it. That was kind of that's it. Like that's how you're going to handle that whole entire scene. That's a big deal. That's a really, really big deal. A father learning for the first time how his son was murdered.
Well, what do you think wasn't handled right about that? Like, what do you think should have been different about that?
It was too quick. The pacing of that scene was like 30 seconds long. That scene deserved to be much, much longer. We were talking about the Bourne movie, the Bourne Ultimatum, earlier. I don't know if you saw the Bourne Supremacy, but there was a scene similar to that in Bourne Supremacy that was handled a lot well. It was Bourne going. Did you see the Bourne movies?
Well, I saw the initial trilogy. If that was one of them, I've seen it, but it's been a long time.
Do you remember? Okay, it's been a long time, but I don't know if you remember. Then in the second one, where Bourne visits the daughter of people that he killed, and she thought all this time that her parents killed themselves, and he said, "No, that's not what happened. I killed them." And he tries to have like sort of a heart-to-heart, and then he ends it by saying, "I'm sorry." I don't even think Bucky said the words "I'm sorry." He never said that to Tony either in Civil War.
Well, he might have. I mean, they cut away from it, and you just see him leaving, right? I get what you're saying. Personally, I wouldn't have wanted to see more of that. Really, I mean, that's another thing with the show doing too much. Maybe because we didn't really have that much room for this character, and he really only is in like the first episode. There to show Bucky's thing, making amends. So the point of this is Bucky's doing it the right way now. He's actually apologizing. So yeah, it clearly wasn't an apology. I would say that.
I disagree with you here. I mean, you're saying you wouldn't want to have seen more of that, but because this show has to wrap things up. But if the show is going to do it, they have a responsibility to do it well.
Yeah.
Because they rushed it, they kind of dropped the ball, and that's why maybe the show should have been more than 6 episodes, but it wasn't. I'm just saying. So Chris.
But ultimately, nothing's going to happen different, really. Right, like it's not like they're not going to be friends now or something. You know, he looks at him in the restaurant. He's still his life isn't any better. The old guy, obviously.
No, I mean, but it's
maybe it's worse. But you know, it is what it is. Like,
it's more about Bucky's character development. You know, that was closure. That was the follow up to Sam and Bucky saying, you know, with Sam saying to Bucky that you weren't making amends, you were avenging. Now it's time for you to make your amends, which inspires Bucky to go and talk to that elderly gentleman. But yeah, I'm just saying this was about character development, and it wasn't done well, in my opinion. So that's another reason why the finale fell a little flat to me. Like, it was important to have that scene, but it wasn't executed as nicely as it could have.
Yeah, it did feel a little perfunctory of like wrapping things up. I agree with that.
Yeah. And then the next thing was, you know, Sharon getting pardoned and learning that she's a power broker.
Yeah, that's at least interesting to me. Like, that actually has something where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of interested to see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I don't know much about her character, but
yeah, it's unpredictable at this point. I have no idea where she's going to go with it. But what I mentioned to you earlier, so I'm getting more and more hyped about Spider-Man No Way Home, honestly. And one of the fan theories going around actually is that the person she's on the phone with at the end of the show is Norman Osborn. That's another fan theory, and I think that's actually really interesting. Do you know who? I can refresh your memory if you don't know who Norman Osborn is.
Isn't it Green Goblin or?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He becomes the Green Goblin, yeah, but he starts off as Norman Osborn, CEO of Osborn.
Why do you think? Why? Where are you getting this from, though? Just because of the movie coming up, or is there something more like? Why would she be?
To go further onto the fan theories of Spider-Man No Way Home, apparently one of the fan theories is, or one of the rumors from one of the rumored leaks is, there are going to be two Norman Osborns in that movie, one being the one from the Sam Raimi trilogy, another being one in the MCU, and the two kind of cross paths in the
because it's going to be something like that Into the Spider-Verse animated film or something.
Yes, it's going to be kind of a Sinister Six movie, but the Sinister Six will be made up of villains from different universes.
And Alfred Molina is going to be back as Doc Ock, right? Apparently,
the same.
Even though
it's the same Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, right where he left off.
So he's going to be in the alternate dimension of this world or whatever. Right?
Yes, I think the prevailing fan theory now, because Alfred Molina confirmed it, is in that ending in the river where we thought he drowned, but maybe what happens is he gets sucked into that mini sun and it spits him out into a different universe. He said, like, that's basically where it picked off. He even said, I thought my character died, but the director of the new Spider-Man 3 is saying, in this universe, nobody really dies, which is also kind of an annoying thing, because it kind of...
That's just a superhero thing that is annoying, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's just no one ever really dies. This is the last Spider-Man movie worth watching. I didn't see it, but...
Spider-Man Far From Home was the Spider-Man 2 from the MCU, yeah. So you haven't seen that? I mean, it was okay.
Yeah, I didn't see it. No.
So yeah, I heard another rumor. I mean, spoiler alert if this is true, but another rumor that I heard is with the new Black Widow movie coming out, the end credits scene there is her waking up on Vormir because Steve returned the Soul Stones, right? Apparently, she's brought back to life because of...
Oh, yeah, I thought this was going to be a prequel or whatever. Yeah, because she's dead, right? But
yeah, exactly. But apparently, the post-credits scene is present day.
Oh, post-credits. Okay.
Post-credits scene is present day MCU, and she wakes up on that alien planet, brought back to life because the Soul Stone is returned.
Because no one ever dies.
I don't know if that's true, but it's possible that that they're doing that. But it's like, it devalues the sacrifices that characters make in this franchise.
No, I completely agree. That is, yeah, that's the problem.
But yeah, I think that pretty much finally wraps up my thoughts on the finale of the show. So I liked it, but they do a lot of different things that are important, but it's not executed well, which is why I don't like the ending that much. It's a better ending than WandaVision, which is another thing that we wanted to get into about. But do you have any further thoughts on the finale of the show?
I kind of gave my final thoughts a little bit ago, I guess. So not really. I mean, I probably would watch a second season. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I'm not like super excited or anything. I am interested to see how this Power Broker storyline goes, potentially at least. And I'm interested to see because I like, Wyatt Russell and I like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, obviously. So I'm interested to see where that storyline would go too.
And Zemo and Zemo too, right? Because you said
and Zemo, yeah.
So.
But But like you were saying, Loki coming up, right? I'm probably more interested
More interest in that.
in
Okay,
that.
so before we get into the future, I just want to say, like, with
Yeah.
my thoughts wrapping up, when you mentioned that, I had to ask myself, did I have a favorite character in the show? I guess Sam, because I liked seeing more people of color like as in power in the MCU as and superheroes. So he was definitely
Mm.
my favorite, and I guess Walker too. Honestly, I think while he was Captain America, he did a good job fighting. Like that scene in the second episode when they were fighting on the top of the trucks, right, with the vaccines in the trucks. Remember, I told you like the show was originally supposed to be about a virus.
Right, right, right.
His friend Lamar was kicked off of the truck, and he throws the shield and saves Lamar's leg. I
Yeah,
thought
that
that
was
was
cool.
badass. I thought that was a really good move.
But then, like we said, he did get beat a couple times after that, so he wasn't as strong. And then he was starting to doubt himself and all that stuff. So
Yeah, but because he didn't have like the serum, but neither did Sam, and Sam is able to be Captain America now.
he could fly, though, I guess.
Yeah,
So
he
that's
can
the,
fly, but I would have.
Also, Sam. I guess I'm putting this together now. Did they name him that because of like Uncle Sam? Like it's supposed to be like.
I thought about that. I thought about that as they were calling him Uncle Sam, but I don't know. I cannot confirm that. I have no idea, man. Sorry.
Yeah.
But okay. So before we go into ratings, I just want to ask you real quick. Although this is a very different show from WandaVision, people will argue these cannot be compared. I disagree with that. There's nothing about this show that you can compare WandaVision. Number one, it's about Marvel superheroes. Number two, it takes place in the MCU. So on that grounds alone, I think these shows can be compared. So which of the shows did you like more? I think I know the answer to this already, but which of the shows did you like more?
Yeah, I said it. I mean, WandaVision for sure.
Same.
For sure.
I like WandaVision a good deal more. I mean, my biggest problem with WandaVision, besides the pacing of the final episode, my biggest problem was Ralph Boner. That just ruined
Yeah,
the show
yeah.
for me. Not entirely, but that was the worst part of the show for me. But besides that, I liked it. And then with this show, like I mentioned a few times during this podcast review, that this show, the best of it is some of the action sequences, and also when it deals with like real life relatable things, like Sam even mentions that if he was in Isaiah Bradley's shoes, he would have felt the same way, and that a lot of people might hate the fact that a black man is the new Captain America. I didn't understand when Sam was talking to Isaiah Bradley and said, "Man, I just don't get it." He says that to Bradley. Why would you not get why a black man is so bitter about the way America has treated him? That I didn't get, but I guess that's just something.
Well, it's also people have different opinion, even among the same race. It's not like just because you're black or white or whatever you feel the same way. Obviously, there's all different type of perspective that still matter and inform how you act.
I can understand why Mr. Bradley is so bitter.
You're a very literal person, Farhad. So like you you take things very. I mean, I know you very well. You take things super literally a lot of the time. So I know you don't. I know you don't feel the same way as all other people do necessarily. But like, so I think some things like that bother you more, maybe, or I don't know. Like,
I'm also a dramatic person. Like I'm known to be dramatic, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I agree with you with WandaVision. I gave WandaVision, I think, an 8.5 out of 10. What would you give Falcon?
Do you remember what I gave it? Because I do not.
You gave it an 8. I gave it half a point more.
Okay. And it's so the same scale. I would give Falcon and the Winter Soldier, nay, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, not the White Wolf. I would give it a 6.5.
Same. Yeah, I would agree. I was gonna give it exactly that, a 6.5 out of 10. So we're on the same page about that.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So good. Yeah, this was awesome. And now, of course, what I really liked, what Marvel was doing was like keeping us hyped every week about. I mean, you mentioned you were not that hyped about weekly episodes of Falcon, but
no, but WandaVision helped me get more into like, oh, actually, I want to watch this now. Probably.
Yeah, and there wasn't that big of a gap between WandaVision and
1 week only, I think, but now it's longer, right? A month or something.
Yeah, I don't think Loki's showing up until till July, but
okay, I thought it was June, maybe, but
yeah. Maybe
Sorry,
I don't remember. Oh
I'll look it up right now while you talk. Yeah,
Black Widow, the movie, I think is coming out in July. So
yeah, June 11th, the first episode is set to come out.
Okay, so about a little over a month from now. So very good. And that's probably, out of these 3 shows, if they came out at the same time, you would have watched Loki first, right?
Yeah, I mean, Disney Plus isn't stupid. Obviously they would never put them out concurrently.
Yeah, I'm
But
well,
but yeah, I would. But yeah, I would have watched this first.
I'm just saying to your taste because you're more of a casual fan, and to your taste because you're more of a comedy guy. You would probably
Yeah, comedy and the bright colors type of stuff. I mean, that sounds kind of stupid, but like I do like a color palette of like all the bright kind of Thor stuff. I like, WandaVision had somewhat of that with all the different black and white, then color, all this. And
red.
a Falcon was more typical, or it was more like some parts did remind me in a negative way of like the other Marvel shows, Daredevil, etc., which I wasn't really a fan of for the most part, or they were more TV feeling to me. So yeah, that's what I'll say.
So speaking of which, so I mentioned Chris Stuckman earlier in this review. I forgot that I mentioned him to you in the WandaVision review. But another thing that he mentioned during his review of Falcon is that because this is Marvel Studios' first time, well, not first time, but like it's their first round of doing TV, and maybe that's the reason why the pacing kind of suffers. And I guess he might have a point there. Yeah, but
it's
possible. Yeah, but I think if they asked Disney for a bigger budget and more episodes, Disney might have given it to them. I don't know. This show should have been more than 6 episodes, in my opinion. But yeah, I am excited for Loki. I would have been excited either way, and I think you would have been too, because it's the one you're looking forward to the most. And you know what it's about, right? You know what the premise is of Loki and everything.
I watched the preview, yeah. So he's basically has to do penance, or he's like in this like for like the time jail or whatever, basically.
Yeah. For being a divergent. I don't want to say that's the word, but like it's teasing more multiverse.
And we got Owen Wilson in here looking like a gray fox now, apparently. So
yeah, he's gonna be. So that's another thing. I wish this franchise is such a juggernaut now that they don't need to have like A-list Hollywood actors in these shows. They could cast more unknowns and boost their careers. But I like Owen Wilson, but I'm just saying,
I don't think that's gonna happen.
They're doing it a little bit, like with Miss Marvel. Like it's a unknown. Okay. So I can't even think of the actress's name at the top of my head right now. And Carly's.
Yeah, but that's the main character. I guess they'd be more willing to do it for a new main character introduction than a supporting. Or I mean, I could definitely see why they would want a big name for something like this. I don't know. Like, I'm sure Miss Marvel, other than her, is going to be filled with big name actors too, probably.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, like, I'm not saying every person needs to be like somebody new, but you could fill more seats, more casting with unknowns, because people will watch it regardless of how huge of a franchise the MCU has become, in my opinion. But regardless of all that, I am excited for Loki for more than, not just because it's more Marvel stuff, but because I think it's going to tease more multiverse stuff, which besides
you wanted that from the boner character.
Oh man, yeah, like there have been fake outs. There was that as a fake out. There was the fake out in Spider-Man Far From Home, but Spider-Man No Way Home is supposed to be an epic proportion of multiverse storyline. And I think it will culminate in.
They're really called Far From Home and No Way Home. That's too similar.
Yeah, they should have called it Homeworlds. That might have been too obvious, but I think Homeworlds would have been a better title for it.
Why does it have to have home in the title at all?
It's just the thing that Marvel has been doing. The first one was called Homecoming. There was a teaser.
Oh right, okay.
Of the main characters, the actors who walked out of a meeting with Marvel, and then the whiteboard was shown with a whole bunch of titles, and then they ultimately went with No Way Home. I can link it in the description. I can show it to you, the video that I'm talking to you.
I forgot the first one was called Homecoming, so they are doing like the home.
Yeah,
that makes a little more sense, but whatever.
But so I think the whole multiverse thing I think will culminate in Multiverse of Madness. I think it's gonna be a lot to do with No Way Home, and I think Loki, the TV show, will have to do with it as well, because you know how that show starts, right? It starts with how in Endgame Loki takes the Tesseract and escapes. That's where they pick up from. So yeah.
Cool.
All right.
We'll talk about that in a couple months from now, maybe, when that one's up. Do you know how many episodes that's supposed to be? Maybe they haven't said yet. I don't know. I just looked up the date, and it only has one episode listed with the date. So yeah.
I think it's gonna be another.
Oh no, it does say 6 episodes.
6. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that's that.
All
so, right. And I think that has the chops to be better than this show. I might like that one the most out of all 3, just because of the missteps that both of these shows had. So we'll see. But in conclusion, yes, this is still a good show. I mean, for my taste, it's okay. But from an objective standpoint, I think it's good. It's a good show still.
Yeah.
It sets out it does what it sets out to do.
It has a certain level of quality
Yeah.
that we've come to expect from MCU and now MCUT. I'm calling it MCUT.
Yeah, oh man,
McCut.
All right. Okay, great. So, Mr. Drew or Podrew, however you would like to be called on this podcast, thank you for dedicating time to come again and review.
My pleasure.
So, this has been for Hot Targaryen and Podrew. Thank you all for listening. For those of you who have listened, Movie Guys Improvise will be having our next anime episode coming up in between, but you will catch the two of us again, hopefully, in the next MCUT review for Loki.
Will I watch more of the Marvel movies I haven't, or go back and rewatch? I probably should to be more informed, but we'll see. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So, yeah. So that's all, folks. Peace out. Holla at your boy. Stay safe, stay healthy, and good night.